Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today, we're discussing Farscape, Season 1, Episode 2. IET. The team land on a primitive Earth-like planet whilst Moya has to undergo an operation.
Well, here we are, second episode.
I feel like I want to give this episode a lot more scrutiny than the pilot episode.
I do too. And a big reason is we praised how alien the first episode felt. And then we get this where there's a lot of Earth-like stuff. And that feels strange to do that right in the second episode when they're trying to convince us how alien this area is, this part of the universe. And then here we get stuff that's very Earth-like.
It still had bits and pieces that made it feel different.
Sure, but this feels more like an episode you should do further into a show, not the second one.
That's probably why the broadcast order shifted this one to number 7 or something.
Ah, yeah, I could see that. But having said that, this episode points out why it's a great idea to have Moya be a living ship. It raises the stakes and you get interesting stuff where it feels pain and they have to deal with that.
They don't want to kill their spaceship.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Like, if it's a regular spaceship and it gets damaged or whatever, you can fix it. But the concept that their ship could die? That makes things complicated.
It does. And while they were performing the operation, I kept thinking, what if this ship weren't alive? This would be so dull. No one would care that they're trying to fix a part. But it works here because the ship can die.
Leviathans don't seem very good at landing on planets either.
Nope, that was pretty rough. So am I meant to think this thing just flies around, never landing anywhere?
Presumably they're a spacefaring species, yeah.
So what do you do when you want to land and you're on a Leviathan? You take a smaller ship? Is that what it is?
Yes, in the premiere they had a little cargo ship, and Erin has her peacekeeper prowler, and John's got his module.
Or did. He doesn't still have it, does he?
It's still there, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't take that one as it is. Last we saw it, it was on fire.
Hey, they could spruce it up.
Or they could just use the little runabout things.
The stuff worth using.
Yeah, the stuff that works. The point of this episode was to, I guess, somewhat devalue humans in the series. First of all, to paint John as just as alien as any of them by...
That I like.
Yeah.
I really wanted a line from the Earth-like creatures to say, "Oh God, you're hideous" or something to John, to remind us that we would look really strange to aliens.
That would be a bit harsh.
Yeah, but
Oh,
it would also be
jeez.
kind of funny.
You're like the elephant man. I'm gonna vom. Well, she kind of did when she saw Pilot. Did she not say, what is that or something?
Yeah, but Pilot differ so drastically in physical appearance. I wanted
Oh,
her
fair enough.
specifically because she's close to a human form. But those differences would be enough where it would scratch at her mind and be unpleasant.
Would it? She looked fine.
Her ears are kind of weird.
She looked lovely.
Okay. And that kid had that
No, the kid was a monstrosity.
odd. Well, yes, that's what I was going for.
So the other way this episode devalues humans is by portraying a human-like race, and everyone apart from John really seems to not really think highly of them or the planet.
Yeah.
I believe the word miserable was thrown around.
Well,
and
even John kind of added to that when she talked about their military, and then John said, "Oh yeah, they're all kind of like that."
it's a little bit bittersweet in a way. I think John wanted it to be like Earth. I guess he wanted them to be like, oh, hey, this isn't so bad. But they thought it was rubbish.
They, as in his fellow.
Yeah, it's.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't really want to describe them as heroes. The other escaped prisoners.
Right.
Like when you have something you like and you show someone like a movie or something, and you can just tell they're really bored by it.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's so
Especially
awkward.
if it's a comedy and they're not laughing.
Yeah, they're just sitting there looking at their phone or something. Just like, there's a massive plot hole in this episode.
I missed it.
The alien guys shouldn't have translator microbes.
The kid and the lady?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was confusing, but I just waved it off.
it's probably because the first 6 episodes were written as a group, and I guess they kind of skipped over that. If you want to give every alien species individual languages and not make it unrealistic, then most of the show would probably be about linguistics. Which actually I would probably really like, but
I'd be into
that's yeah, I don't think Farscape is the right platform for that though.
that.
That was actually something that I really liked about have you seen the movie Stargate?
Nope.
The first sort of half of the movie had a lot of that kind of stuff in it, and I quite liked it. But it's quite different in tone from Farscape.
Even more silly?
Is this silly? It's a bit silly.
It has silly tendencies.
Like John's eye.
Yes. We mentioned this, you did, last episode, where he asks something and then is completely ignored. And that happened here, and it made me laugh. Where it couldn't actually do something to my brain, could it? And no one answers him.
Similarly, when he gets tasered by the sort of zap weapon,
Yeah.
he's saying, "Why can't I move my body?" And then he says, "This isn't permanent, is it?" No one says anything to him. People don't value John at all, which is good. I'm more than sick of sci-fi shows which have humans being just the ultimate best at everything species.
Yeah, that's a tired perspective. It's great to see people not treating him as if he's the best.
More than that, they treat him like he's a bit worthless, which in a sense he is. He doesn't really know what's going on still. It's all very confusing.
Which is what makes his questions valid, but they still don't care.
Explaining it would kind of take too long.
Right, it's like, yeah, if some little kid wanted to know some complex stuff that it's not worth getting into.
So John is like a child wandering into a situation.
Basically.
And they're like, yeah, sit down, don't worry. Adults are here.
It's like a kid scared that the moon will fall on them or something, and you just don't want to get into gravity and orbits. While this show has some silly bits in it, there was one scene that was gruesome when Rigel bit a chunk out of Aaron's arm.
And swallowed it, I think.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
Rigel is an interesting character to me because he seems very one-dimensional. He seems kind of just greedy and well, I don't know, how would you describe him?
Selfish and self-serving. But then we see here he helps the ship, so he's not beyond helping others. I guess if it suits him, because he needs that ship alive.
I would say he was being selfish. Like if someone else could have done the surgery, he would not have volunteered.
Yeah, it felt to him because of his size, but if anyone else could have fit in there, he would not have done it.
I think what I like about him is that whilst he is probably is quite one-dimensional, but there is some sort of undercurrent of pain in him. I don't know. He bit Aaron and acted out because he was not because he didn't want to do it. I mean, he didn't want to do it, but that's not why he acted out. He acted out because he thought he couldn't.
I think he's just a jerk who bit her.
Maybe he is.
Also, she's super tough. Instead of tending to that wound, she just held it for a little bit before doing anything.
Yeah, what's the problem? It's just a bit of
Hold
skin
this
getting
blood in.
push the blood back in. We saw Zan has some abilities to absorb pain.
Yeah, that was strange. I wonder if it's limited to ship pain.
The way she spoke about it seemed like no.
That wasn't a real wonder.
Okay. She did something in the premiere, uh, the first episode. It's called Premiere, and
Because it's the premiere.
yeah, it's the pilot episode, but then there's a character called Pilot. So
Wait, is that why they did it?
I don't think so. I should say season 1 and I think season 2 as well have working titles. So this episode's called IET. I don't think that's a good title.
No, it's terrible.
It works when it's written down, but if you just say IET, it just sounds like an acronym, but it's not. These are working titles. So what was I saying? Yeah, in the first episode, Zan sort of pulsed John's head with her head. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't.
You could go back and watch it. It made John sort of happy.
So she could transfer feelings.
Perhaps. I don't know. Or
You do
I?
know, but you
Uh,
shouldn't say.
I like that we never found out what Anlax was.
Oh, yeah.
I felt John's unending confusion was the scene where he finds it in the food. For a moment, I thought, are they trying to poison him?
That's what I thought.
But then, is it just a condiment or an ingredient?
Right. At first, I thought, oh, they're trying to poison him. And then I realized they don't even know his biology. How would they know what kills him? That could just be anything in there.
It's really confusing. I like how confusing it is for not just for John, but you feel confused as well. And I like that they never cleared up exactly what that was. I mean, I assume it's salt or sodium or something
Yeah, something benign.
fairly simple.
I was also confused when John was hiding and he was looking at the kid and they had this prolonged exchange where they weren't saying anything. This is when the squid guy was captured.
Squid guy.
Yeah.
Dargo.
Yes.
He's a Luxon, not a squid.
Close enough.
Okay.
Buff Zoidberg.
Sure, Buff Zoidberg.
Anyway, when he's trapped, the little kid walks in there and he sees John, and then they're staring at each other. And I didn't know what was happening. I thought, are they communicating telepathically? What? Why is this so long?
John and Boy were staring at each other for 1 minute and 10 seconds.
I think this episode was kind of weak.
There are aspects I like. It's cool that the ship feels vulnerable and humans are devalued. But as a whole, I wasn't too thrilled by this episode.
It seemed quite a standard sort of mission episode.
This feels like a filler episode, and we're only at the second one. We shouldn't be having filler already.
What is the nature of filler, though? Because this is clearly kind of expensive. There's the whole Leviathan sort of crash land scene, and there was a lot of external shots and forest workings in the barn and house and stuff. Plus, it led on from the previous one because they had the Pandak beacon security device, and we did learn a thing or two about the characters. I'm not saying it's not filler. I do understand why it feels like filler, because it feels like a bunch of stuff they had to do for no real reason. It seems like there's a fine line between things which feel meaningful and things which feel arbitrary.
I bet if it came together better, I wouldn't think of it as filler. Filler doesn't have to be bad. But I think if an episode is not top notch, it feels more like filler.
Yeah, if it starts to drag. Like that scene you were talking about where John and the boy are kind of just standing there. How long was that? Probably only a few seconds or something. But the fact that you thought it was taking a long time probably shows that you weren't as drawn in as you could be. It wasn't engaging you enough that you couldn't sort of get into the pacing of it. This is only episode 2.
Yes, that's true. That is correct.
I still think it's a strong start if we're like, we're not sure if this episode is good. It's almost good. There's plenty of shows where the first few episodes are just something you have to get through to get to the good stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's typical. But based on the strength of the premiere, I would be willing to keep going. I know we're going to continue watching, but if I were watching this on my own, I would still continue just because of the first episode.
There's a couple of tiny little things that I want to point out.
Is one of them measurements?
Were there any new measurements? There was new elements. The periodic table seems completely different.
I heard less than a Narne, was it? It seemed like it was some kind
An
of
Arn.
time. Okay.
Yeah.
That one.
Oh, that's new. Yeah, Arns. Bet they're very similar to ours.
That's what I gathered from the context.
The standout one for this episode, though, is that the periodic table, everything just has different names, so John doesn't know, because he probably might actually know what it is if they're using Earth terminology, because he is, presumably, he at least has a basic working knowledge of chemistry.
Right.
He's a top NASA guy, so you'd think he would know fairly simple chemistry stuff. But no,
I hope so.
he's just useless because it's like tritium isotope or something. It's like, okay.
It's fun to have this super brilliant guy be basically an idiot around these other people because of the language barrier.
It's not just the language barrier, the technology barrier as well. He doesn't know how things work. Like, he suggested that they just land on the planet, and they all look at him like, maybe.
Yeah.
The little things I wanted to point out were two little things. One is that Dargo, when he was in the tree, sort of squashed a bug or something.
He did?
Yeah, he looks over and just like, you can't really see it because it's behind Aaron, but it looked like he was squashing a bug. And the other thing was Rigel was eating the anesthetic.
That was funny. I saw that.
It's just like, why would you do that?
Why would you eat? Isn't it a numbing agent? I can't remember.
For Leviathans, yeah, but I don't know what Hynerians can eat. Maybe they can just eat just about anything. It's just something that no human would do.
Yeah.
No one would think
it's really
of that.
quick.
He's splashing around, just a little bit in his mouth. It's like he's picking strawberries or something. Pop one in his mouth. Tasty.
It was red.
It was a bit easy for them to rescue Dargo.
All it took was one shovel. And then that second guy had so much time to react.
They're red shirts. There's subhuman red shirts, so yeah, sucks to be them. But who knows, maybe the farm was in an incredibly remote place.
And why were they both standing really close to Dargo and both had their backs to the outside world?
It's things like that that make the episode a little less good. If they go on an arbitrary mission, that's fine, but at least make it not a mission that's also strangely kind of easy.
It should be more of an incident if an alien life form lands on a planet that's not capable of interstellar travel.
There's just a few vans with guys.
Yeah,
expect,
one military guy.
You'd expect like the whole army turning up.
Let's have two dudes watching this guy in a shed.
Like I said, the only way I can understand this is if her house, I think I call it a farm, I don't think it's a farm, but whatever it is somehow incredibly remote, and perhaps they don't have powered flight either. So it's just hard to get to. Who knows? Maybe it's just not particularly well put together.
Yeah, I'd rather not come up with excuses for shortcomings that I'm sure they didn't care about. Well, they didn't care enough to cover themselves.
It's the same shortcoming we had for the premiere as well, where they had to overpower two stupid guards.
Is that this show's thing? Every episode has two stupid guards?
3/4 of the way through every episode, there's a critical scene where they have to rescue themselves from two stupid guards, yes. It's actually called Guardscape.
Oh, okay. I'm glad we got that cleared up.
Do you have a quote from the show that you'd like to share with us?
Mud is mud. You can't breathe in it. You can't move in it. It holds you. It grabs you. It sucks you down. You want to know about mud? I know about mud.
This guy knows about mud. Yeah, Rigel is aquatic. That kind of explains why he's really short and probably can't really walk or defend himself in any way.
Doesn't explain why he's a jerk and eats numbing stuff.
Because he's a deposed king.
Okay, that makes sense.
So why did you choose the quote about mud?
It made me laugh.
Okay, that's a good reason. If the show is making you laugh, that's a good thing too.
It is. But with this episode, there weren't a lot of bright spots as far as dialogue. So there's that too.
This episode was a bit like mud.
Go on.
It sucks.
Mud sucks?
It sucks you down.
Unlike Moya, this episode did not rise out of the mud.
I don't want to be too harsh on it, because like I said, it's episode 2. And we could move on to episode 3.
How do we do that?
First, we look at the notes to remind ourselves what it is. Again, broadcast order and production order are different. So the next episode we are watching is Exodus from Genesis.
I bet they escape somewhere. That's called Genesis.
That would fit the title, yes. We'll have to watch the episode to see if that comes true.
Okay, I can do that.
All right, let's move on then.
I am moving
Oh, okay.
on.
Yes, I got that.
I wasn't just moving in general.
I'm going to press stop now.
Okay.